Hi guys, this is Brian Finnegan. We're here today on Hudson Records Listening Post, and we're going to be talking about the newly released Hunger of the Skin. And I'm here with my two wingmen, Mr. Sean O'Graham in Portlaoise, County Antrim, and Liam Bradley, the drummer up in Donegal. So nice to be with you tonight.
I'm from Derry. I just keep saying that. I'm from Derry.
Technicality.
John, did you add in that wee boom tom right at the top there? I don't remember playing that.
I think you played it, man.
I keep meaning to ask. Yeah. Did I? What I do remember about this track was that I had the whole track done. It was the only one that you guys sent me that had a drum suggestion on it. It was a drum loop on the front.
Yeah.
So I kind of assumed, this is what they want, because it's the only one that actually had anything on. And so I, did the track, and then a couple of weeks later, when almost everything was done, Brian brings me up very sheepishly and kind of said, the front end of Dust? And I went, yeah. I think you could do something a bit better.
I don't think I said better, did I?
That's probably the way I heard it.
More imagination, maybe. I'll tell you what it was.
No, actually.
Whenever we put that track, I think I remember Sean Og was doing, did you put a bouzouki down on it? Sean Og, the first time, was there a bouzouki?
I think it was just a guitar, man. I can't remember.
Or was it was very sparse anyway, and I always thought that we were gonna go back and beef it out a bit, and then I started listening to this old Ali Farkateur album that I had in the house that I hadn't listened to for years, and then I thought, actually, it's that kind of bluesy groove sort of vibe, and so yeah, it did a bit of a right hand turn, didn't it? On the drums anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're the only person I've ever played drums for that wants me to play more. Play more fills, do more stuff. That never happens on a session, ever. Can you just play a bit less?
You're never allowed.
You're never allowed, so that was great, on this, and then, later on, obviously later on.
Yeah. I think it was a good change from the first one was Dust, and I think the really nice thing about this set was I had no name for this second tune. It was just the whole thing was going to be called Dust, and then whenever that's the space in this tune opened up, and I thought maybe it would be good to have some voice. And quite quickly after that, I thought of Garage, because I hadn't seen him for like 18 years, but I remember his Rakish Paddy blues that he did with Brian Finnegan, and then just like out of the back, out of the past, just this voice. And I thought, if ever a timbre of a voice or the grit in the voice suited a space, it was just here, and it was him that brought the title of the second tune. So it is quite clearly two tunes there, but I just hadn't named the second one, and then the line in the poem on Douse to Do, the Black Dance. Like the drums kicking in here.
This is the only time I've ever played one of those dance stroke rave fills. I don't think I've ever played anything like that.
It's funny, because that's the only time I've ever recorded anybody else. I had to take my iPad, remember, Sean, and go down to the Culture to record Garage.
Yeah.
And I was thinking he's never going to cycle back here if I've mucked this up. And I actually haven't recorded him at all. That's it, it's gone. So I was very pleased to hear that it actually had caught.
No, it was great. It worked perfect, yeah.
Roving reporter.
Melvin and banjo, is it?
Yeah. Leon.
Sorry.
Leon.
Yeah, who else is on the track? Who else is on the track? I haven't seen a track listing.
The first track is Leon and you, me, Connor McQueen are playing bass, and Garage, Sean O playing button box as well on the second tune.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's about it, is it?
Yeah, that's the first now.
Yeah.
It's a killer opening track, I have to say. It really is. It really is. I mean, the first time I heard it on Lynette Faye's program, everything sounds fantastic when you hear it on the radio. It's like there's an extra wee frisson, there's a wee thrill when you hear something, even if you've got a great mix of it and on your speakers at home. When you hear it in the car on the radio when you're driving along, it's like there's something really special about that.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I remember being in Lynette's. I think it was shortly after the Fluke album came out. I was down in the studio and she was playing Bridget Campbell's CD with Aidan O'Rourke, and I was in there to talk about Fluke, and I had that album at home. I had Bridget's album, and then suddenly it was just she was playing it right before the Fluke track, and I was just carried away. I couldn't believe listening to it through those big speakers again. It's just a shame that everybody doesn't have a set of them at home, isn't it? Because a lot of people listen through phones and earbuds, and
does that ever get you down, Sean? That you lavish all this love and attention on something to realize that 90% of people are going to be listening on junk like this.
Yeah, especially junk like those. Yeah.
You know, I made an effort.
Yeah.
Come here. Oh, good one. Hey, RTE playlist. This track.
Yeah, that's about mad, isn't it?
What's this thing?
Are they playing the? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I'm so pleased that we put that down, John, honestly.
Yeah, that was the last minute sort of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's so zingy. It just took it. I was very lost in it. I was like on the very end of that.
Yeah, I picked that up on a whim on my honeymoon in Brazil.
God, this tune. That is the last tune that came in the whole writing process, and I got 8 tracks or 7 tracks, and I was thinking to myself, I thought it was complete, and then I was sitting at home one night after we'd done a session, Sean Og, and I listened through to the roughs, and I thought, I just had this wee kind of thing in the intuition that there was just missing. There was an ingredient in the mix that wasn't there, and it kind of exhausted the whole process of writing and going deep into trying to get the tunes and catch the tunes. And I thought, well, what's to lose? I'll just light the candle and head off into the bathroom again.
Went to the bathroom one more time, yeah. Yeah,
when the kids go to bed. And literally within about 40 minutes, that tune was there. It's just landed right out of the...
This tune sounds very South American to me. I mean, because that's why I put that pseudo drum on it.
Oh yeah.
I immediately hear, Rhythm of the Saints and Brazil, and I mean, is that just me imposing an image on it? Because that's kind of the way when I was playing the percussion, I was thinking of South America. It's not. I mean, where does it come from?
The tune?
Yeah.
Where did it come from? It probably came from South America.
And this, my friend.
Do you know where it came from? It came from.
With feet and tight and slick.
I would say that it came from this sense one night that, you know, it's like the summit of a mountain. When you're climbing a mountain and you've got your eye on the horizon where the land or the rock meets the sky, and you get there and it's not the summit at all, but there's another one up above. And I thought, you know, it was at that time of the year whenever maybe gigs could come back, or there was a wee bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and then there wasn't. It was kind of snuffled out again, and everything was just back to where we were before. And I thought, you know, because I kind of felt lucky and privileged that I was creating with you guys and we were making a record, and I knew that wouldn't have happened this year had I not been at home. But everybody else, like, you know, I thought it's kind of unjust. So I think there was a wee bit of... I felt that there was a wee bit of... it had come through. We'd come through something that was vast and immeasurable, but we hadn't quite reached the new shore yet. That's how that it felt like to me. Whenever it had finished, it was kind of defiant, and it was visceral, and but you know, it could have been South American too.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, the reason
I love the feel. I love the feel on the rhythm on that.
Well, the thing is, I bought a set of go-go bells way back in 1995, and this is the first record I've managed to jam them onto. I threw them in there to see if anybody would notice, and or if anybody would, you know, press the mute button. And fair play to you, Sean, you didn't. They're right in there in that middle section. First time ever on a record.
Success.
Bought in 1995. Finally.
You got your money.
What were they called? Agogo bells.
Agogo bells, yeah.
Right.
I'll show you now. Right here. Never managed to get them on a record ever. And then I suckered you.
And now everybody will want them.
No, everybody will want a set. All right, we've already moved on to the next track. Peace.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Wow.
Love Patsy's strings in this.
Yeah. You know, Patsy was just such a hero on this on the tracks. You know, where she took the string arrangements is just like so sublime and cinematic, lush.
You played me these strings when we were out in Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
A ridiculous party thing that we did.
And many like loads of tracks they were big sessions. Some of you guys seem to remember.
Oh yeah, it's like 30 to 50 tracks.
Yeah. Patsy said, you know, I go big if I think the track deserves it.
Yeah. Fair play there. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. These two tunes are for Oli, my son, crossing Rubicon. The first one, I remember doing it with you in that garden, Sean Oak, and the gig that we did in one of them.
Only lockdown gig.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And another wee cameo as well coming up, Colin Sands.
so many great voices on this, from Boris to Colin and your sister. I mean, I haven't heard Colin's voice on the radio for so long. It was a phenomenal thing to hear his voice.
The coming of
Mhm.
you wake and the candles are lit as if by themselves. Stars,
I love that.
dreams pour into
That kind of it floats on to space. Is it a filter that you put onto it, or what was that?
I can't even remember. It was a combination of echoes and filters, whatever else came to mind. But yeah, sending it into space.
Colin also has this ability to kind of the performance is to try to word for it. It's poetic, but it's for performance poetry almost in the way he delivers a line. There's great drama in it. It's just beautiful to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to love listening to him on Folk Club, the way he introduced people. You know, it brought a hush. Do you know O'Lean? This is his favourite moment on the entire album. He's not so fussed on
the changeover.
He's not so fussed on the tune. I mean, he likes the tune, but he just thinks the bridge.
Right.
Your Evo here. He goes,
Yeah.
oh, that's so cool.
Well, I'm cool in all these eyes. That's good.
It's quite spooky and, you know, rocky and
Yeah.
mysterious. I seem to remember that this tune coming up was it was getting the balance between, there was so much perk on it.
Yeah.
Because we had Ant playing perk, Ant Romero playing perk, and you were on it as well, Liam. And I was thinking it's quite heavy, isn't it? But
The whole album, Sean, is mix-wise. It must have been very daunting because, my God, I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen you upwards of 27 separate mics, never mind what everybody else was sending you.
Yeah.
How did you get your head around all that?
It was kind of with the for the convenience of time as we went along though as well. So we kept adding bits like every couple of months, so you kind of got your head around it. And, you know, another 20 tracks will come, you know, next month or something, you know. But I know it was a challenge, all right.
Fantastic.
those chords, Patsy's chords, he hits. Was it Joseph Carmichael playing the guitar, and
Yeah.
there was a kind of evolution in his chord, you know, his B part chords,
Yeah.
and it all just seemed to distill into them that third B part before it drops here. What is that there, Liam? See the perk? Is it just
I think
is it kind of block?
That's the clave.
Oh, okay.
A couple of sets of clave. There's the clave.
Right.
The way I played the perk on, I did all the perk first. I put the drums on last. And I kind of jigsawed. All the perk were all kind of little voices that all intertwined with each other. And the kit was the last thing I put on. that's kind of through the whole album. That's what I did. I'd start with the shakers and then build up to the heavy stuff. So I was kind of learning the tracks as I was going along as well.
Yeah.
But whilst it's kind of perk-wise, that track there's a lot of stuff on it. They're all kind of call and response perks. In a sense, they're not dense. I know they're dense and there's lots of them, but they're little sort of call and response voices and little moments rather than, something that's rhythmically dominating the whole thing. That's kind of the way I approached the perk on most of the album, really, was kind of little moments and voices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is Shouting Wind. This is kind of another track, a bit like Fathom. When after I'd written it, I was thinking that's already kind of fully formed. It's like the one from the guitar intro to the kind of the trippy outro, the coda at the end. It seemed complete from the very first moment. It didn't say that I needed anything else to be with it. The whole kind of way of building sets, especially instrumental sets, where there's a couple of tunes together. It's kind of like all of the music wrote the rules on this one, because it very clearly didn't need anything, and Fathom didn't need anything, and yet there were a couple that did suggest. I think I really, on the whole album, I like the shape of this. Go on, sorry, Liam.
When did you record, where did you record John to? Did he send his stuff in as well?
He did it down in
John? Yeah. He was down in Brian McDonough's studio in Sligo. Again, an enormous session, wasn't it? Like 60 tracks or something, or 50?
Yeah. Be nice to meet these people someday. Yeah. Or get to actually play with them live. Yeah.
The bass there, I always meant to ask you, is that Ian?
It was. I put it down on an electric guitar with an october pedal on it, and then Ian followed it.
This is the Tubular Bells moment for me. The sound of that bass, and it just kind of brings me to Tubular Bells for a wee moment.
Yeah,
just a wee moment. And then her voice, my God, that's just. And then Led Zeppelin.
That's your big room mix.
Oh, this is just beyond exotic. This track, isn't it?
And she sang Shima singing, I think the Vayu is the Indian god of wind. So it was quite appropriate. This tune is actually for you, Sean.
It's what?
Yeah, it's for you. I forgot to tell you in the last year, but it's actually I know after the gig that we did in the garden.
Yeah.
And I was kind of halfway through it, and I was just thinking of that poem by that young Canadian, he was a fighter pilot, British Canadian fighter pilot, John McGee. The poem's called High Flight. And I remember my dad telling it to me whenever I was a child, night after night, recounting this poem. But the last line was, he was a fighter pilot. He died, he crashed when he was 19. And the last line is, I reached out and touched the face of God. But there's a line in it. I've slept the surely bonds of earth and chased the shouting wind.
Good.
And I was thinking while we were playing the gig that, if anything, if words could describe music or what it means to take flight in music, it was that poem. It just suddenly came flooding back.
Yeah.
And then, the tune, I thought that this one's definitely for Sean Oak, who's here tonight.
Thanks, man.
There you go. From me to you. Happy Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, here's the one that started the whole thing, the whole ball rolling.
When did this start?
Was it back in April?
April.
Was it April? You
a year ago. Almost a year ago.
Yeah, I think I started writing. The first bits of it came in just about that. It's about this time last year, actually.
And at that time, had you decided I'm going to make an album, or was it just one track kind of idea?
I hadn't even, when I started to write, I wasn't thinking about recording at all. I thought I just need to play and I'll see what comes. And then that one came, and there are three very separate parts in this track.
Yeah.
And and quite quickly followed after, by an idea, a narrative that could go through it that would involve, Boris and a trombone solo and a drum solo, and then that kind of strangely Eastern outro.
Again, here's another first. No one in their right mind has ever asked me to play a drum solo on a live gig, never mind on a record. This is my first and last drum solo on a record.
It could be the start of something lame. Yeah.
No, Sean, it took me 40 takes to get that drum solo. And 2 days to play the track. 2 days.
Well, yeah, it took me. If I ever have to play this track live, it's going to take me about a fortnight to rehearse it up. If you'd written it out on paper, it just wouldn't have made any sense at all. But sometimes you just you just trust the music to find the way.
I know you were saying that the tune's in 3 parts. For me, the tune was actually in 6 parts. Sean can testify because he got 6 separate parts and had to somehow manage to, glue them together on something. Because I wasn't even that well up on Logic at that point. At one point, I erased part of the track. I pressed a button and it sounded like, I can only describe it as a pair of trainers in a tumble dryer was what it sounded like. Whatever I did, I nearly died.
Where, on this bit?
Yeah,
on the middle?
Just it was somewhere around here, and I was trying to drop on something, and I don't know what I did, and the files just scattered all over. I have no idea. Of course, I hadn't saved it properly, which Sean pointed out later. But my God, it's a beast, Brian.
Well, it's a beast. It's a beast because it was like the collective. I think by this stage, it's leaning in. I think the trombone when Anton sent the trombone session, and they were poking out, they were quite hot because he wanted me to hear the trombone in the mix.
Yeah.
And you know, the mix, it was all lopsided, and then of course Sean Oak gets a mix, and within like, you know, a couple of hours I came back and I was like in tune and just sitting.
There's himself.
And again, I think Boris recorded this in a park.
Yeah.
In London, and there was an Airbus flying over it.
Flying overhead.
And you were like, what's that?
It was just into his phone, wasn't it? Or something, wasn't it?
It was just into his phone now.
It's a lovely trombone solo. Lovely trombone solo.
Here comes the Brad.
Halfway through, I did this on a Friday afternoon, and when I got up to about 40 goes at it, I fired the stick the length of the house and drank about 3 pints of water. I had such a splitting headache. And then, of course, once I'd rested up for about a half an hour, I came back in, and that's what happened. Finally.
Sometimes you have to walk away
from something. You have to walk away from something. Not forgetting O'Lean, his dramatic entry there.
Forgot about this bit as well. Big track.
The outro?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you think about making an album and you think, you know, the life of the album after that. You're going to get out on the road and tour it. And then if you're lucky, a couple of radio shows might play it. And then, it's just like when we handed that track, I realized there was like 7 minutes. There's like 2 tracks. Who in their right mind is going to play a track that's over 7 minutes long? But it's like any of the tracks on the album. I wasn't thinking, how could this spin out after? Yeah. I think like sometimes if you start thinking like that, let's make a couple of short tracks for radio, then, because I'm not in charge, like the music is in charge, and it's whatever length it is.
John, what is the wee stringed instrument that you play at the end? Is it some sort of a Chinese or Japanese yok? What is it? Or is it an
iPad?
Are you faking it? Was it really?
It's a Chinese iPad. Brian,
the Chinese iPad, I love it.
Chinese. What's the name of that instrument?
Is it the Guangzhou or the Guan? I think it's in the world section of GarageBand.
Yeah, we couldn't find any players. So
well, we could. They were too expensive.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Epic. I was just going to say, as a postscript of that was the first big challenge of lockdown, that last track. It really was.
Yeah, same here, actually.
Even at the end of that track, even at the end of Flow, I didn't think there was an album. I was just happy to keep writing. But I think that by that stage, the plan was already there. I just wasn't saying it out loud, that there was more to come. It's crazy, because I think of every single one of these tracks, I could, apart from the music and on the way the three of us built, because when I sent the track to Sean Oak, and Sean Oak put the chords down, and then you put the drums down, the way was clear. Everything else was just the colors and the depth and the personality of all the other people who came, but it was already there.
Well, I think what was unique about this process, though, and I'm sure it was the same for everybody, was the first time that anyone had sent me tracks and not laid out a very strict brief. You just sent me the tracks, and which left like a completely open field for me to have fun with. And what amazes me is that you accepted almost everything that I played, and I'm sure that was the case for everybody else as well. You know, it was very, very liberating to be sent tracks and have someone trust you to do hopefully the right thing. That was the real key to this whole thing.
Yeah.
I think for me anyway, if I had a ringside seat for the last 10 years, so I know exactly what you're capable of, and I know that you don't just like keep time or you're not the rhythm section or the drive. You are, but you're also.
Stop it, please.
There you are. I mean, come on, you even whistle better than me, which it doesn't. It's not comfortable to have to say that on live TV. He's a better whistler, anyway, no, it's about it's the way that you play, because you play so musically and you sing, so you're in the inside of the tune playing it out. So I think if you're anyone.
I'll rephrase it then. The music itself was the brief. The music itself dictated the brief. The tunes and the way they were laid out, and it dictated the brief without almost anyone having to say anything, other than a few nudges here and there. I mean, it literally, all this stuff almost played itself. It's incredible. A really miraculous affair from top to bottom. Oh,
We never went home.
Let's listen to the man.
But it's still good. My mother brought that picture there. The last half birds hadn't I? But it was about the time, that's it.
There's an hour on that man alone. In fact, I could talk for an hour about that one track alone.
Yeah.
Maybe just listen to it.
His voice
is brilliant.
His voice is my favorite. Is my favorite on the entire album. Actually, the end of this is one of them, along with Dust. This was the other track that you asked me to replay at the end, this to make it a bit harder. I'd done this on brushes originally. I had done this on brushes, and then you asked me to do it on sticks, which completely changed the flavor. So Dust and this were kind of the last two things I did, actually, in the scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I was. I think when it got to something about when you're recording new music. I find it anyway. I think that when a tune hasn't got any road miles in it, it's kind of sitting back. It's just kind of finding its feet, and then after a few gigs, it starts to ramp up. And I'm always cautious, like if you go in and there isn't road miles in the tune, then it'd just be really slow and laboured, and I wouldn't be able to listen to it again. So it's just like thinking, I know that I was like torturing Sean Oak, saying Sean Oak is, I'd think it was fast enough, and then I'd drive back home from Largy Road, and by the time I got to Dungannon, I'd be like, oh no, it's dragging. I'd be like, Sean Oak, do you think we could just loads that one up? And Sean Oak, whatever the gentleman would say, surely, I might have to redo the guitar. Thanks, Brian. But I think with this tune, I was thinking with this tune, it was definitely, because you were swinging it, and I thought it really needs to get its head down and
push forward.
And then and then what you sent back was just like.
This is my favorite drum part actually on the whole album. Well, actually, the front end of Dust and this, and it's because by the time I got around to doing them I knew them inside out. That thing, you know, the luxury of being able to revisit something a month later.
Yeah, it's as if you've been gigging it for a while.
Yeah, it's almost like it has been gigged in. It's been gigged in your head.
Yeah.
By the time I came round to do it again.
It's a bit electric here, doesn't it?
What's so simple?
Good man, Tony.
Good man, Tony. Has he heard the track, Brian?
He's heard it, and you know, he came over and he had a look at the video as well. Because it's not easy for him to catch things, but we sat him in front of the big computer, and
yeah, very good.
He's got his own Facebook page.
Does he? Brilliant.
Great.
He's the talk of the townland. I mean, he's talking about all the townland. So. Yeah, I just thought it was great. The Mighty Trigger.
Yes.
This tune, I just had one of the most fantastic, magical moments ever. You know, and visiting Sean Oakes when he took out. You know, I knew Trigger didn't like the sound of the box, and
it's hard to know whether he doesn't like it or whether he's just.
Or he does.
He just sings along, yeah. Because he doesn't run away. That's the thing.
No, he's happy to sit there and.
Yeah.
He just has a.
He always sings along when I play the accordion. Yeah. I think this is the very last thing I did. These electric things here.
To Sean Oak as well, you know, this was the moment coming up into this second tune for me that was just, it was a little bit gnarly, and I couldn't, I'd ran out of steam and ideas by this stage going into the second tune, and I knew it didn't sound right me starting it, even though, you know, I come in the second time round. I thought me taking this tune, it's just there's no surprise in it. It doesn't lift. And then again, Sean Oak, I thought it'd be great if. And lovely Neves.
Neves string.
What I love about this track, Sean Oak, is this from here on. It's, you know, you don't really get that it's happening, but it's just build. It's such a subtle build.
Yeah.
The tension is starting, and it's not a tense tune. So it's all in your touch and the way that you, because it's coming, you can hear the ramp.
Ramping up and up. Yeah.
And then the bodhrán back.
love Ava's vocals on this. Beautiful. So the two great ladies are on this track.
Yep.
This is where you go to the 1 to 3, isn't it? On the last time around of this, Liam?
Yeah.
Is that on the tree?
There you go. It's kind of marching through the threes. You're kind of marching straight through them, like boom, boom, boom. Owen O'Neill taught me that trick. That's gorgeous. That is just gorgeous.
The Vox?
And it's just great to have a vocal, like a that instrument. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a family affair. No. That's a real family affair for you too, that track.
It is, yeah. And Trigger the dog gets in there and everything.
Mm.
This is the perfect way to end this, because you need a bit of respite after the drama and the journey of the rest of the album. This is just perfect.
It's kind of strange, I thought about it recently, and then I didn't really kind of pour over the track listing and the order in this album. That's the other thing that surprised me. It wasn't built in any particular reason. It just felt like, it felt like Flow, should nestle in the middle of somewhere. It shouldn't lead the line, even though it was the big single at the start. And it, I wasn't thinking, that the third track should settle and be slow. It's like they all just seem to be where they were meant to be, and then when it drops down into the end, into this track, I could talk again for an hour about this track, but it's kind of inspired by this Billy Collins poem called "The Tipping Point," where he the poem is really about reaching the very fulcrum in your life. But you don't know it, so there's a moment that you pass over, where you're now, you've reached the however long you have. And the poem, talks about, would you feel it would it be a physical moment when you're shoveling snow in the driveway one morning, or would it be as gentle as rowing across the equator at night in a boat? And I love the idea of that, reaching the very center of something that's vast and immeasurable, and then, and at the same time, losing someone who was quite a radiant light. So this track is kind of, celebrating the life of someone that I knew. And then when I think about the poem, it just kind of, it's even more poignant because I thought she was so young when she reached that tipping point and she didn't know. And I thought about, would she have felt that, or what happened at that moment. So it didn't seem to fit anywhere else in the album, and it just like that's where it falls down into. And it just it's lovely to have Sarah as well playing the alto flute on that. Although she said I sound like a trombone.
Right.
And I said, was that intentional?
Yes. I swear.
Yeah. She said, I'm very present. I'm more present than I thought I would be, but I sound like a trombone. What's that big drum at the end there, Liam?
It's probably the same big drum that I've used on everything else, but it's a surdo. I call it a surdo on one track, and I call it a low drum on something else, and it just depends on what I hit it with. You get different tones and how. So when I'm playing it in Fathom, I'm playing it with sticks really hard, so you get that Rhythm of the Saints vibe off it. And you play it real soft on that. Having said that, it could just as easily be one of Sean Oak's garage band samples, for all I know.
No, that's all you. Yeah.
No, but very nicely edited together. I don't think I did quite as much on the front end of that as has ended up there. You've obviously moved a few things around very tastefully, may I say.
Did you?
Do you know what? Here's the thing about. Well, the man's probably Dave. There was that much to be doing. I mean, I've been doing this for well over 35 years, and usually you play on an album, there might be one or two tracks that you're really chuffed with, or usually maybe one track. This is the first time I've played on an album where I can honestly say all of them I feel that way about. It's the first.
Van Morrison's tracks.
Absolutely. No, well, particularly something like that, where there might be like one really fantastic track that I'm really proud of on a particular album. It's the first time I can stand over every single track and go, every one of those is special.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is special.
Special.
I think, thanks guys, but I think as well, for me, I've never been, because whenever you're doing gigs, you're just like, you become this kind of shape that's just gig shape. And it doesn't mean that you're practiced. It doesn't mean that you're sharp or you're in the groove. And quite often I find recently in the last couple of years that, I wasn't particularly enamored by bits and pieces of stuff that I did. I listened back to it and I was thinking sloppy, and so really the start of last March for me was all about practicing. I just thought, I want to play and I also want to practice. And the practicing, then the music started to come. But it meant by the time we came around to actually recording, I was relatively, I wouldn't say happy, but I felt that I could, I'd do the best that I could, in the actual mechanics of playing it, and delivering it. And so everything about this year was just so unique. Yeah. Because I wouldn't have been in that shape. I wouldn't have had time to take away stuff and pour over it and to go back. And I don't think half the people that were on it would have been available.
No, it would have been a different album completely.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, the more that this year has marched on, and the more this album developed, the more I'm kind of almost dreading being in a live studio with the band, because I won't be able to go back and redo. I mean, if I went into a studio and re-recorded myself, as often as I did on this album, I'd be fired on day one because you're going, this guy just can't get it. He's not getting it down in 1 or 2 takes. The point of it was I didn't want to get it down in 1 or 2 or 3 takes. I wanted to take 10 and 12 takes. And in the case of Flow, 40. Yeah. I don't mind saying. But, and within that was what was special about this year. It completely changed the way I've approached recording music and creating parts. It's been luxurious from that point of view, really luxurious. And it's something that I've never been able to do in a studio with a live band, because there are other things that you get from that. There's a spontaneity and a freshness of the first and the second take and all the rest of it. There is that, but this is the first time I've seen the other end of that spectrum, the other side of that hand, if you like. Mm-hmm. Where I've done lots of that other thing where it's the spontaneous first, second, third take. This is the first time I've been able to craft parts. I think that's the best way of putting it. And I'm not sure that I want to do it any other which way ever again, to be honest. I really like this. I really love this, actually. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. It was Flow that started all that. Mm-hmm. Mm. Should we be inviting Andy Bell back in?
If all
strangers
on all of earth in all of time reached out their hand and touched your brow and felt the sweat on your cheek tingle.
This is going to be the hidden one, wasn't it, Sean?
And
this is what?
This face.
This was going to be the hidden track, and we were going to just let it
you couldn't do that.
Surface up out of Equator Light at the end, and then you worked your alchemy on it, and then
touch you, trace you, ache for love of you more tenderly than.
Yeah, mostly came from this OP1. For any nerds out there.
In the fattening heat, and I looked around me at all these bodies.
And then taking elements of lots of, of banjo and Patsy as well.
Yeah, just bringing loads of bits from other tracks and kind of reversing things and putting big reverbs on them.
And what the body with its blood lion knows to do. And I remembered holding you, your gold crown between my breasts. The hint of steam.
The thing about, this whole, also about the whole, I don't want to really talk over the poem, but from the opening visit to your studio
the tearing down
was like how
of certainty and progress,
how easy,
and the scorching of the earth,
how easy it is to be there and how easy it was. There was never anything a bother. And sitting on the gold sofa behind you there, I give John Oak a track or a part or a tune, and then he'd start working away, and you'd you'd see this thing start to grow, up out of this, come out of the speakers and take life, and then take flight. And I was like,
grain from grain, revealing truth and pain.
I thought to myself,
and something with,
and still do, how lucky that I get to work here and with him, and then with you. Because whenever you, as I said earlier on, it's
and slick white smiles, our tenderness.
It was a pleasure.
If all the years on all of
pleasure's all ours
in all of time reached out their hand and circled back again and lived.
What I'm loving is that when the reviews and when people are playing it on the radio, they seem to get that as well.
What you love.
It's, they really sense how special this whole process was.
I think that, a lot of people were struggling this year. I think that it's been really tough to try to make sense out of big stuff, why we have to be, especially kids, when you've got kids and you see them trying to put the pieces of it all together, why Granny's looking over the fence, and why we can't hug, and why I don't see my friends for months and months and months and months. Trying to explain that to kids really demanding, and confusing. And by living next door to Tony, and watching him going past every day with a steady flow of visitors every single day to his house, I think that the writing of the album, I didn't know it at the time, was to try and, for me, to make sense out of it, to find meaning. It wasn't for anybody else. It was like I couldn't tell the kids, and I couldn't put a hand on Tony's shoulder. And when the House of Music started falling down, I just thought I have to talk about it, but I have to, I need to have that conversation with me, and that's where it starts. And then from out of that, because it started in last March, it was just desert.
Yeah.
And then little green shoots started to appear where there was that they were not there, and then suddenly water was trickling, and it was like an oasis in the desert. And it grew and grew and grew. And as people came on board, it grew lusher and greener until, it was a sanctuary. And, I came to be, I get up in the morning and I could not wait to leap out of bed and figure out what was, who we could bring in and who we could reach out to. And there were so many challenges trying to deal with that, but steady as a rock, we're the two of you. And so, it was just like, it was a real blessing for me, the process of making this record. I've never made a record like it, and I can safely say already that whether people enjoy it or it's too challenging or they really love it, that's up to where it goes now. But for me, it was entirely unique. And so, yeah.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. I've never had an experience like it.
Same here, yeah.
Or raising my glass to the pair of you, and maybe we'll get a hug.
Let me go back into where I left the glass
sometime soon. And if we ever do get a gig, I'm definitely I'll need a month to get it rehearsed before I can play it.
We'll need another pandemic to rehearse it.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Bunch of guys, and to all the crew.